phone. All right. It says we're officially live. I always like to pull out my phone just to make sure we're live. And we are officially live. We got it. We got the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Kevin Thompson. I remember Kevin just years and years ago, just following you. I remember seeing you at, I think it was A&MP, I want to say. And
Or
then,
Amsterdam.
yeah, I mean, seriously, just all these different places that we've seen each other. And you won't even remember this. This is back in the day when I wasn't even building. I remember just reaching out to you. You took my phone call. You could probably look it up. It's probably like 6-7 years ago. Long time ago, just asking for some different advice. And so he's always someone that I highly recommend, as he knows I've sent several different people that I work with. Just don't ask for anything in return. Don't ask for referral. I'm just like, hey, this guy can help out companies. He can help out distributors. I know there's different things as far as lawsuits and transitions from everything. And I call him as one of the protectors of the industry, of trying to help out both distributors and companies. So Kevin, why don't you just give them a little bit of the quick background, besides the fact you like long walks on the beach with the sunset.
Right.
And we did get to hang out, right? Your wife and my wife, and we were all in Amsterdam about 3 years ago at an event. So we got to hang out a little bit there, but give them the version. Like tell us a little bit about yourself. I know your wife loves running marathons. You like watching marathons on Netflix.
That's right.
Like
Yeah.
Marathons. So tell us a little bit, and then we'll get into, I'm so excited to get into some of these things with the FTC and what you have to know in order to be compliant for yourself and for your company and for the entire industry. We'll get into that in a second. So tell us about you.
It's an honor, and I really appreciate the invitation. And I've been a fan of yours for years. And usually lawyers are not great marketers. I don't pretend to be a great marketer. My strategy is to create good content, and good content spreads. It's been my strategy since we started the firm back in 2008. But watching you and following your channel and your page, I'm constantly learning and trying new ideas. And so I pitched you on the idea for doing a live. I appreciate you accepting the invite. And of course, I'll have you on mine as well, because I think it's always important to get field perspective on what's going on in the industry. I'll do a really quick summary if I will. I started for working in-house for a company a long time ago. Gosh, it's been probably 14 years ago. And that company would get in some litigation with a network marketing company. And that's sort of where I got my baptism by fire in the sector. I started my own firm probably 2008 and wanted to focus on this industry because I could really identify with it. I just loved the entrepreneurship, the creativity, the grit of the people behind the space. The idea of just a simple pay plan where if you move product, you get paid regardless of where you come from, educational background, demographic background. I'm intrigued. I was intrigued at the time, and to this very day, I still love what I do. And so, as you mentioned, I primarily represent companies. We've represented several hundred over the past decade, but on occasion we represent distributors too. And so I understand issues on both sides of the fence. It keeps my blade pretty sharp. So that's a little bit about me. And yes, my wife is very talented. She's qualified for the Olympic trials on four occasions. She'd run a little faster if I didn't get her pregnant when I did. But here she is. She was 40 going into the last Olympic trial marathon, and 300 competitors. She got 48th. So I'm very proud of her.
Jeez, that's absolutely insane. Well, it's fun because, like you said, I mean, most don't market at all as far as being an attorney, and most don't focus on this space. And I've always wondered why in a 200 plus, and I say plus $1 billion industry, because, there's a lot of companies that do not report to the DSA, a lot of national and international companies. So it's actually, I believe, much bigger, but you would know better than me. So tell us, there was this letter that went out. And again, we're not going in specific companies. We're not naming companies. I don't want anyone to feel like we're shaming your company. This could have been a lot of you. Maybe, Kevin, you told me I'm wrong. This could have been most of you. And for whatever reason, sometimes there's agenda, sometimes there's politics, sometimes companies absolutely deserve it. But it's definitely an awakening. I know for me, as I'm looking at it, because I want to protect this industry as much as possible. So tell us, how serious are these? There were 10 companies mentioned, but how serious is this letter? What does this mean? What should we be aware of? What's your take on all this?
Sure. Where to start? So just to kind of get to the conclusion, I'm optimistic about the industry's future. Truly. When the pandemic started, when things started to get weird in March, I was thinking to myself, what is the future going to be like? Because I started to see people in my social circles, they're being cut, their pay was being cut, the economy was changing. And actually, quite personally, my wife owns a cycling studio, a spinning studio. Nobody's going there now because it's closed. And so I'm seeing all these different sectors, and I'm thinking to myself, what about the network marketing industry? And I've bet my career on gritty entrepreneurs, people that they find opportunity. And as long as there's a market for opportunity, there's a place for our industry. And so I am optimistic. And in particular, companies that are going to do well, I think short-term and long-term, of course, are health and wellness. That's been a staple industry or a staple product category in our industry, as well as really any other company that offers opportunity, because right now there's an ocean of people looking for financial opportunity, right? The gig economy accumulated almost 50 million people in a very short period of time, and that has evaporated overnight. And it's going to come back in some form, might not be what it used to be. But the reality is there's a lot of people looking for ways to supplement their income. And that's what we do. We do offer income opportunity. The thing that I'm noticing is that we've been playing defense for so long that when there is a time to get out there and really press and promote your opportunity with integrity, people are kind of nervous, right? Because there's anxiety. But let me get to your question. So 10 companies were sent a warning letter from the Federal Trade Commission. Now, this warning letter, the letters were all identical, with the exception of specific claims. For example, company ABC got a letter regarding product claims. Now, most of these letters pertain to people selling dietary supplements, where people in the field were saying, and this is where it gets kind of interesting. They were over the line, but not dramatically over the line. Here's an example. During this pandemic, don't you think it's a good time to boost your immune system? We have a product specifically for immunity boosting. And the FTC said, no bueno. And should the industry be concerned? No. Should those individual companies be concerned? Obviously, if you're an owner of the company, it's never a good experience to get a letter from the FTC. But candidly, this was a general statement the FTC is making to the entire industry. And so if somebody is in a company that did not receive a letter, that's not necessarily, everything is fine sort of moment. I think that the FTC is putting the whole industry on notice. This is where we stand on this issue. They've sent out, I counted 69 letters so far. So it's not just the network marketing industry getting picked on. It's e-commerce companies, affiliate companies, retail companies. Everybody's getting a letter. And here's the point. You cannot commingle your product message with COVID. It can't even come close. It can't be part of the same post, can't be part of the same paragraph. When it comes to COVID-19, coronavirus, and all the derivatives thereof, you can't go there. And this might be more nuanced than what you want, but the same is true with an income opportunity. So some people say, well, we're not selling a dietary supplement, so we're fine. The FTC did send some warning letters. Now, I do think this is secondary on their priority list, because when it comes to healthcare, that's a life and death situation, right? We don't want misinformation out there regarding the prevention of diseases or treatment of diseases. And some of the claims were really bad. But now when it comes to income claim and earnings claims, the FTC also said, when you're talking about the pandemic and the stay-at-home order and the lockdown and the disease, don't use that as an opportunity to misrepresent the income opportunity. So companies just need to be careful.
Yeah, and it's interesting you said, just especially with the times and where we're at right now, and they're very sensitive to that and not taking advantage of consumers. So this is kind of an interesting question. We can come back to this and we can go in any which direction we want to, because this isn't, so everybody knows, this isn't scripted. We talked for like 2 minutes before about other stuff and then we hopped on. But the thing I was thinking about in my mind is I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you love about the FTC and maybe what you dislike as far as network marketing goes, because I think too many people are just on the dislike side. They're out to get us. And I know that you and I have similar takes on looking at both sides of it. We've seen things that we think have been unfair from our perspective. I know we looked at a lot of what happened with Vima, and certain things we understood and certain things were like, wait a minute. And then also on the same side, there's got to be some regulation. And I feel like between Amazon making us up our game for customers, between the economy doing extremely well and no mini recession since 2008, so there had to be more of a focus on customers. And between, I feel like, and you would tell me, maybe it's not, maybe it's just like perception with media, the FTC tightening a little bit, right? And you could say they tightened back in the day, right, with Amway, and then loosen and tighten. So I don't know, maybe not. I feel like it's actually upped our game to providing way more value. So I'm grateful, even though I know there are disadvantages as well. So I'd love to hear your take on this.
You stole my thunder. And one thing I really appreciate about you is you are a student of the industry. And I think it's a sign of a mature mind to try to find both sides. And nowadays, it's hard to find people willing to weigh two sides of anything, right? Think politics. It's like people have a team and they're going to defend it to the core, right? Even if the car's going off the cliff, we're not going to leave any skid marks. It's my team. Here, it's easier for me to answer the things that I dislike, but I'm going to start with your format. What do I love about the FTC? I do appreciate that they're not trying to make law. If they could make law, I think we would be in trouble. The FTC recognizes its limitation, and so they push out guidance on their website. And so they've made it very clear that the network marketing industry is just fine, and that there are certain behaviors that they prefer to see. And they do want to see, as you mentioned, lots of customers, because customers, it's the best form of proof that the product you're selling has real value. If we're selling $10,000 pencils, well, clearly we're not selling anything valuable or that has real value. We're not going to have customers. We can probably build a scam around a $10,000 pencil, but there's no customers. So regulators
and they don't count. Clarify this for me. I just want to make sure I understand this. They don't count distributors who are no longer building and are ordering the product, even though in our minds it's like, well, those are glorified customers. The FTC doesn't seem like they look at those as customers. Is that right or wrong?
Well, that's part of the unfairness category, right? Where when the FTC is looking at data, they'll look at a distributor who hasn't sponsored anybody, hasn't made a single retail sale, and in fact, maybe they buy less than the minimum volume requirement. Clearly, they're not buying to qualify for anything. They count them as a victim. So that's in the other category. But as far as what I appreciate about them is they do up our game, right? For some measure, they're fair, right? They could very easily try to impose their will on the industry. They know that they cannot do that because Congress is the only entity that can write law. So for the most part, the FTC has stayed in their lane. Now, what I dislike about the FTC, I don't think we have enough time here. My preference would be they focus on the lower hanging fruit and sort of focus on big tech and privacy. That is sort of an existential threat to civil liberties that the FTC is positioned. That's their function, is to help with privacy. And instead, to be sending letters to people selling vitamins, I don't think is a good use of their resources. Another thing is that due process. Rob, if I were to file a lawsuit against you, let's say we have a contract for something, I buy a car from you and it's a lemon. I can go to court and get a remedy there, but I have to give you notice. And then there's a process for that. You have time to respond. And the FTC strategy that I don't appreciate is that they will literally sue a company, not tell the company, get a company shut down before there's any process. And I just think that's abuse of due process that the FTC lately, they're struggling with it because companies are fighting back and the courts are being remade with different kinds of justices that are saying, wait a second, where does it say that you can get financial penalties from companies? And actually there is no law that says that. And so that's one thing that annoys me. I guess I'll stop there. I could probably.
Yeah, we could go on forever. So if you were looking at the ideal companies, right? I know we're not mentioning company names, but what is an ideal? We've talked about customers and value. Lay out some other things, because look, this is important, people. You're building, hopefully, a legacy income. When I say legacy income, don't get me wrong. I know many of you, your goals are $500 a month, which is life-changing. Money can do so much for you. So I'm not giving amounts. That's up to you. Everyone has different goals, dreams, aspirations. But this is something where people don't realize, yes, sometimes it's the right decision to leave, but more often than not, you built some sort of residual income. It's tough to go back and redo it and rebuild it, especially if you did it right the first time with all these customers. So it's this stuff's important to know to give you confidence in your company. Not to say they need to be perfect by any means like that, but we're just trying to help level up the industry. So if you're looking at a company that's just doing it right, maybe you have a couple in your mind without mentioning names, give us a list of things to look for, things that they should be doing or need to do.
Yeah, so actually, I wrote an article titled the heuristics of a good company, which is a really fancy word for signals of a good company. And
it's a word an attorney would use.
Yeah. Okay. So we're not going to.
Okay, you're smart. You're hired.
No. Okay. So experienced leadership. Leadership is critical. That was the main principle years ago, and that will be the main principle in 50 years. Having just an intelligent leadership team, not somebody that wants to grow by any and all means necessary, but somebody who can think long term, that has maturity and experience to understand that faster isn't always better. And I would also say a lot of startup companies that I represent, they're excited about their product. They're excited about their opportunity, but they really fail to appreciate the task of building a company as well. Mm-hmm. So R&D is important, product's important, pay plan's important, software, all of it, vital. But getting help, right? Getting office space and getting people to come together regularly to bounce ideas off of each other, and the ability to delegate responsibilities to a team, that is underappreciated. And so good network marketing companies have good teams, good support teams internally. And compliance, a lot of folks, compliance is an afterthought. It's not an attractive thing. But when a company focuses on compliance, it should be a clear signal for your community, Rob, that this company is thinking long term, right? And so what are ways where a rep in the field can sense that a company cares about compliance? Well, is there any kind of compliance training? Do they have a segment for compliance at their events? Is the company, is there even a compliance officer, right? Is there an employee who their mission in life is to help in this area? Are there incentives in the plan to promote good selling? Like, do people get paid to sell product, or is it is so much of the money skewed for the 0.1% that there's not enough for those early people to make money retailing? Right, all of those things go into the blender, in my mind, to help me determine if a company has the right behaviors or not.
And like you said, leadership, I mean, that's where everything rises and falls, right? The captain of the ship is going to be the person that steers it in the right direction or wrong direction. And I've seen this as it starts from the top there, where culture becomes one of the best compliance, because it comes to the point where these leaders, right, are so protective as well. And of course that you've got to have the owners and compliance and everything else first, but these leaders are teaching people what you should and shouldn't do, to the point of if someone does it wrong, it's like, what are you doing? Like, well, that's not how we do business. We're different. And I love seeing that when you go. So I saw a couple of questions earlier that we missed, but a couple people are asking maybe more details on what they can and can't post, because it's always a tricky thing. I remember when I first started building, I called compliance the sales prevention team.
Right.
And then as I went along, I learned after about 3 years, okay, without them, I don't have a business. So you got to be grateful, and there's got to be the other side. Otherwise, we're the crazy people selling anything and everything. This was back in, most of you know, I'm 100% retired. I don't build for any company or anything like that anymore. 100% generic. But that's what I used to call them, sales prevention, right? And then I learned the importance of them. So I think a lot of people just worry, like they're trying to sell, but then they aren't sure, right? They want to get as close as they can to the line. Sure. And I don't know if you could give some more detail on what that looks like, maybe examples of can and cannot, or principles.
Absolutely. No, I'm in the middle of writing an article that's going to go out today.
And if you can post those articles after in the comments below, that would be great also.
I'll absolutely do it. Yeah, it's getting reviewed now. And I love it. I love anybody that's trying to sell anything to improve their life, because these are the people that are taking personal responsibility for their lives, and they're not waiting to be bailed out by mom or dad or whoever, right? So that's why I'm drawn to this sector. I like advertising. I like hustling. So when it comes to the rules, it depends on the product. Now, forget product. Let's focus on the one thing that every company has in common, and that's an income opportunity. Every company in our industry has an income opportunity, and there is a right and a wrong way to do it. And the rule is, anytime a result is discussed, and there's 3 types of income claims, basically, hypothetical, which is if X, then Y. There's a true result. Hey, here's my check. That's a true result. And then there's lifestyle, where it's like me next to a car. Without my business, I wouldn't be able to achieve this lifestyle. Just think about those 3 things. And whenever a claim is made, a disclosure has to be provided. And so it is incumbent on the company to, number one, have a disclosure where the average earnings are discussed. And we can talk about how that average is made and whether it's fair or not.
Well, I was going to say, a lot of companies have it during momentum, like 6 years ago, and then they don't ever update it, and it's like their average is half of that now.
Right. Well, and then there's the concern that a lot of the distributors that we talked about earlier, they're not building, they're buying. Do you count those as reps? Because that lowers the average. The bottom line is, a disclosure needs to be present. It's that simple. And the company needs to have it, and the company needs to train people on how to use it. When it comes to product, the FTC has made it crystal clear. You can't go near COVID, right? So during the pandemic, don't even think about it. No hashtags. Don't even be like, well, this pandemic's kind of scary. Our vitamins are great. Don't do it. They made that clear. But I always like to talk about the rule, so it doesn't look like I'm just giving opinions. The rule is, this is only dealing with product companies. You can make structure function claims, meaning if a product can support a structure or function of the body, you can make the claim. The key word is support. Now, you cross the line when you start talking about fixing, right? Because if you fix a serious bodily impairment, the FDA considers that a disease. Common cold is a disease, according to the FDA. So supports a healthy immune system, totally fine. Increases mental alertness, totally fine. My favorite is help support cholesterol already within normal ranges, right? Fine. Helps with high cholesterol, not fine. Helps prevent coronavirus, not fine. So those are some basic guidelines.
And when they're doing it, as far as income claims, I've heard a few, and I always tell them, like, I don't care who told you this, like, I would just steer clear of it. But when they're making income claims, I made this amount, and then they're giving an income disclosure, is that something they can do, but I wouldn't do? That's something they should never do? How?
They can do it. So the FTC considers any sort of income claim misleading if it's above average, okay? And nobody talks about average earnings. Hey, you can earn $8 a month or whatever the average is. So anytime an above average result is shown, you have to cure it with a disclosure. Now, if people say, well, why can't I show off my check? It's a true statement. I'm not even advertising. I'm just showing it off. The FTC, the way their collective mind works is anything that is projected, the FTC assumes that the reasonable consumer will expect that result, meaning whatever is shown, the consumer will assume it's average. Now, even though most people aren't, excuse my language, they're not that dumb, right? We see TV commercials all the time. We know, all right? We know that my pillow isn't going to cure my cancer, okay? We know that. We know that it's probably not the best pillow in the world. We know it. But the FTC, that's not how they think. So whenever a result is projected, you got to have a disclosure. Now, this is where it gets kind of tricky. If the result is just so unusual, like I just made $1 million, there's an argument that can be made that even a disclosure can't help that. It is such an atypical outlier result. You really can't fix it with averages. But that's more nuanced than what you want, I think.
Yeah. No, and then the last question on that, and then we can go in any direction you want, is what about when people recognize other people's rank advancements? Is it just if they just put the rank in the name and they don't say anything else, they're okay? Is it something like that? Because obviously that's really common and popular, and people are excited to either do it on their own profile or on the other person's profile and just, congrats on the super galactic triple star diamond rank advancement.
Sure. I would not think a disclosure is required in that kind of scenario. I'd say go ahead and be proud and celebrate. And this is common sense. I mean, I did the decathlon back in college. Hard to believe it's been 20 years. And, I wanted to be a national champion. I remember I was being recruited. I told my coach, I want to be a national champion. And he didn't tell me, well, Thompson, there's a 0.03% chance that'll happen. Before you do this, you need to be fully informed. I was an 18-year-old kid, and I wasn't stupid. I knew it was a long shot. And so on the one hand, a lot of these rules are very counterintuitive, but them the breaks. It's the way it goes.
Yeah, I love that. What else do you want to tell us about the direction everything's headed as far as the industry goes, or things that you feel like, companies or distributors need to know? Because I just feel like you have such a unique perspective. The fact that, very few are traveling. You're traveling to many of these generic events. We've hung out in Texas. We've hung out in Vegas at GoPro. We've hung out in Amsterdam. We've hung out in all these different places. And then on top of it, you're always online. You're always learning, doing interviews like this. So you've got a really good scope of both the distributor and company side of giving people, just from a generic standpoint, right? It's like just helping everyone. What do you feel like distributors need to know going forward? Things that you've seen, even if it's just success tips, even if it's vision, anything.
So stream of conscious, I'm excited. I mean that. I am genuinely excited, and I wasn't a month ago, but just seeing how companies are adapting. And an example, this seems so simple. This will seem so simple for you because you're good at this. I didn't do events. I didn't do very many events. And so for clients, I charge a fee. And I charge a fee because really, I kind of don't want to go. I've got young kids, and I am not going to miss a football game or any kind of game. I love it. And that's a brief period in my life where I get that. I don't want to be gone. So the reality is I didn't do a lot of client conferences. Well, now people are doing Zoom events, and it's an incredible experience for people. And that's just opened up a new door where I can do conferences now from my home and underwear and a sport coat. Now, if you're wondering, I am wearing pants. So
everyone was wondering after.
Okay, I'm fully dressed here. But I'm excited about how companies are adapting. I'm excited about the need for opportunity. So the gig economy figured out something that we weren't doing well as an industry. Yeah, you're dressed. Good. The gig economy had 50 million participants in a very short period of time. Network marketing, I think it's maybe the number's around 6 million. We missed something, right? There's a market for big opportunity and big money, but there was a bigger market for people that just wanted to make $500 a month. Okay. If you want to make $500 a month, go hop in an Uber, go drive some people around, and it's possible. And I think now our industry is sort of getting wise to that. And we're seeing a lot of plans rewarding very generously retailing and merchandising. And so I'm excited about our future. I think there's a need for people to, the traditional employment is great, but I think we've seen recently, there ain't no guarantee there, right? There's no guarantee in network marketing, but there's no guarantee in traditional employment. It's up to you and your viewers and me to create value. And I think we're going to see a wave of younger people than me, younger people than you, where they're going to take their own destinies in their own hand. They're going to opt out. They're going to be like, screw this, right? And they're going to find ways to create value on their own. They're going to opt out. We can get kind of macroeconomic. There's ways for them to opt out of the financial sector, where what the Federal Reserve is doing and printing money, they're going to own more Bitcoin and do decentralized finance stuff, right? They're going to opt out of traditional employment and do more freelance stuff. And that's just a trend that I see. And I think we are positioned to do well because we sell good products and we provide e-commerce opportunities. You don't have to go somewhere to be part of our industry. And companies, they take on the risk. They take out a lot of the risk for the distributors in the field. So for a small enrollment fee and a starter pack and some product, you don't need a website, you don't need inventory, you don't need a payroll. And so I think those benefits are going to be more pronounced.
Yeah.
Now that traditional employment is under assault, under a lot of pressure. And I'm optimistic.
So am I. I look at it and I look at how we have not had a recession since 2008. And when people are comfortable, they're not looking as much. But what's happened during that time is, yes, the strong customer acquisition and values. I believe this is the strongest our industry's been poised for massive growth because of that. And also because now we've learned how to do online much better. Of course, there's always going to be people that do it wrong, but most people were doing it wrong 10 years ago. And now we have a ton of people that are educating and doing it the right way online. There's still always going to be education because there's always new people and people that just don't understand what common sense is, unfortunately. But then, like you just said, a lot of jobs are being automated. Again, it's not ripping on jobs. It's just there's a transition right now that's happening. And as that's happening, more and more, as Kevin just alluded to and mentioned, people are looking for other creative options. And I really believe, and I know this is a blanket statement, but I believe done right, everyone loves network marketing. I said done right. Who doesn't like products or services that they actually love? Making a residual income. I'm not making claims on what, right? But making a consistent income. Because I know sometimes people think that bonus income is residual income, right? And it's not. And you still have to make sure you keep providing value. But if you're doing that, who doesn't love it? You're around people that are incentivizing you and celebrating you to do better. And a job many times, and again, there's so many incredible jobs, but many times you teach someone to be as good as you or better than you, they get a promotion over you. In this industry, you teach someone to be as good as you or better than you, then you both get to influence and impact more people, which creates a greater income, which hopefully can give you more time freedom to live life on purpose and be like Kevin and myself, where we're obsessed with seeing, our kids in different sports. I think we traveled out of state 8 times last year for tennis tournaments. We did 7 family vacations on top of that. That's life. That's what it's about. So I love that. So last question, where can everybody find you, Kevin? Where's the best place to find you?
Okay, 2 places. So thompsonburton.com, that's our firm, and /MLM attorney. So thompsonburton.com /MLM attorney. And also just Facebook. I have a page and it's facebook.com /MLM legal. You do a search for MLM attorney. I'm the first one that shows up. And I've got, I'm pretty proud. I've got I think 20,000 likes. That's big for me. And so that's where I really can connect with people on a personal level very easily. And that's where I call it kind of keeping my blades sharp, because I think it's important to be grounded and just learn from the ground up. Like, what are people seeing out there? And that's where I really get valuable feedback. And that's the source of a lot of my optimism.
Well, you're always a straight shooter, and I love it. You're always giving both sides. You're giving your optimistic side. You're also giving the realities. And sometimes I know companies and sometimes distributors don't like it, but that's why they trust you, and that's why I'm glad that we finally got to do this and be able to do this interview, and everyone got to hear from you. So thank you so much, Kevin, for your time. I appreciate you. I appreciate all the value that you provide.
Hey, you're very welcome. It was a pleasure.